All right, welcome everyone to More Layers. I'm Seth Mariano.
And I'm Jordan Smith.
Yeah, and so right now when we're recording this, it is I believe, second to last night of January 2022.
Yep, it is the 30th out of 31 days.
Yep, thank you. And so yeah, not that much has happened for me since, I've been working full time since last week. I mean, I've worked full time in the school district. I've you know I just found out the Cincinnati Bengals have advanced to the Super Bowl, and now the 49ers and Rams are going at each other to decide who's going to join them there.
Yeah, and last I checked, which was about 5 minutes ago, I think, they were tied and about halfway through the game. So it could go either way.
Yeah, well, anyway, we're here to chat and have some fun. And for those who are new to this, we are going to mainly focus on a broad topic, do a sort of question and answer sort of table talk thing. And our big topic of this episode is stereotyping.
Yeah, that is a very touchy subject because it can be found everywhere. And Seth figured it was a good idea to discuss it. So I thought it was a good idea. And now we are going to go over different types of stereotyping, where it can be found in different forms of media, and so on.
Yeah. And so I've written down, as normal, a few questions, and we pretty much will go back and forth giving our honest answers to them. And the first question I wrote was, what are the dangers of stereotyping?
That really has quite a few answers because stereotyping is typically not a good thing. It can be used in a good way, maybe, which we will get into later. But yeah, for the most part, stereotyping is going to be received in a negative light. And one of the things I said uh, as a danger of stereotyping is that it often paints certain groups or people in a bad light. And what I mean by
Yeah,
this
that seems
is,
to happen most often, yeah.
oh, absolutely. Like, let's see, what would be a good example? Let's take people with autism. There are many different stereotypes associated with people who are autistic. Like, I often see the word autistic being used as an insult because many people, when they see someone is autistic, they automatically assume that they're stupid because of all the stereotypes that are out there. But really, I've seen plenty of people who are autistic in some fashion who are like really smart, really bright, or really good at doing something. Like there's several people in our theater group that we've been a part of for years that are really good at singing or dancing, and they happen to be autistic.
And, you know, for those who don't know, Jordan and myself are both part of an organization called Artists Unlimited Incorporated, which is an organization designed primarily for performing arts for special needs people, among whom myself and Jordan are. Both of us are autistic.
Hmm.
And we have people with one disability or another, several of them, and they really tend to bring out the best in all of us, I think, and they really teach us well and train us well for these productions, and they really are very encouraging.
Oh, absolutely. And if there's one other thing that Artists Unlimited has really helped me with is that by being subjected to many people with many different forms of autism or many different forms of a disability, it allowed me to take the time to really understand who they are, what they have, and what that puts them through. And it allowed me to really be more accepting of these kinds of people. Not that I ever disliked them, but I never understood them. And of course, that would make me nervous. But being around these people for long enough, I began to understand them more and I wanted to learn more about their different disabilities or just their differences in general to see what makes them special.
I think sometimes if you spend enough time with someone who's at least seemingly different, you might eventually realize you have probably a lot more in common with them than you don't, or you might relate more to them than meets the eye.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I can't say that I've seen too many like portrayals of autism or autistic characters in the media, though. I have watched The Good Doctor, which has overall gotten some positive reception and seems to portray its main character who is autistic in an overall positive light.
And I think Sesame Street introduced an autistic character.
Yeah, I did read about that.
Yeah, I did hear that they did that, but I never heard like how they actually portrayed her and whether or not it was accurate or not. But I think there was one clip I saw where she was very anxious about something, like something really made her nervous, and somebody had to explain to another character that she had autism and how it affected her. So I know they're at least treating it very seriously, but again, I can't say for sure how well they portrayed the actual character having autism or not. So the other biggest thing I wanted to point out when it came to the dangers of stereotyping is that it often ends up being connected to things like racism or sexism. Like there's a lot of stereotypes for people of a certain skin color or stereotypes for people with a certain gender assignment or something along that line. And anytime one of those stereotypes is used or applied or just spoken outright by somebody, it usually doesn't end very well.
Well, I wrote down to answer the same question, what are the dangers of stereotyping? Is that it seems to usually result in hatred or favoritism. So, like hatred toward one group or favoritism or bias toward another group, you know?
Oh, absolutely. You see it all the time.
I think that's a problem because, I believe ultimately everyone is important and ought to be respected at the end of the day.
Oh, absolutely. And well, it is only an animated film. The movie Zootopia really does have a central topic discussion on stereotyping throughout the movie. And when they use a stereotype based on how animals behaved in the past, that stereotype ends up causing people to be afraid of the ones they were talking about. And they start to separate themselves from them. And there's kind of a riot slash protest going on that really didn't need to happen. So, really, even one single stereotype can cause a lot of hatred towards them.
I also wrote down generalizations about people and cultures, and then as a sort of parenthetical note, I said media haven't done much justice. I don't know if it's because of a shortage of creative ideas or negligence to do more homework, or I don't know why, but it seems like media, at least in the past, has contributed a huge amount to this sort of epidemic, if not pandemic.
Yeah, I get that.
So then I wrote down, what are some examples of stereotypes that are done way too often? So some specific examples.
Yeah, the first one that came to my mind immediately when I was thinking of a way to answer this question, it's one that you often see in movies or some form of media where there's like a fat character and it's very obvious that they just love food.
Oh yeah, it reminds me of when you said that. Reminded me of a sort of that show on ABC. What would you do?
It's been a while since I've seen it, but I do know that show.
Yeah, and yeah. They did one experiment where they had two actors pretending to be a couple. Well, the guy was well, in shape, at least by the world standards, I guess, sort of
Right.
qualify. And and the girlfriend was plus sized, and then they have another couple actors playing the guy's parents. And at one point, I think this was part of the script, or part of the or part of the guidance. The mother said, "Is there anything you two really like to do except go out to eat?" Was one comment.
Yeah, I haven't seen that particular episode, but I've seen stuff like that happen. And I might bring the subject of this TV show back when we get to one of the other questions later on, because I think it will really fit.
It was probably a good idea because they've covered a lot of. They do tend to cover a lot of hot topics of social relation.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Like they'll see how people react to various issues, and if sometimes they react well, sometimes they don't. It's really just one big social experiment. Then
Yeah,
another,
yeah. I was going to ask, did you have another one?
yeah, I have let's see, three more here. One that I wrote down was that they often portray the rich person as someone who's really entitled. And then one example I wanted to bring up of the opposite of this is one of the richest people in the world, Bill Gates. Now, for a while, he was the richest guy in the world, as far as I know. So you would think he'd be entitled because he has pretty much more money than anyone else. But while doing a little bit of research, I can't say this is 100% true, but in the research that I did, reports I had heard about Bill Gates were all positive. Like supposedly he would, I forget exactly where he was, but somebody gave an example of when he went to some, I don't know if it was an event or a restaurant or what, but instead of using his social status to get immediately brought inside, he stood in line just like everyone else. He didn't use any form of entitlement to get an advantage.
Yeah, that reminds me of a story that Michael Jackson shared once, that because he had known the late Princess Diana, and he knew how when she would go to Disney, she would make her kids wait in line, and he liked that.
Yeah, I would definitely give respect for that too. I admire the celebrities or the really rich people who still teach their kids how to be responsible, decent human beings and not just hand them everything they want just because they have the money. Like anyone who really takes the time to teach their kids proper behavior, etiquette, whatever, I have a lot of respect for. Then another stereotype that has become very prominent in recent years is the kind of person that is dubbed by society as a quote unquote Karen.
I think I have an idea of what this might mean, like a sort of dumb blonde or something.
Often it's a dumb blonde, or they're wearing certain things like these really big shades. They might have a handbag like draped over their shoulder, or just the way they move or speak makes them just come across as entitled. And of course, the infamous line, "I want to speak to your manager." Now, not all people who look like this is going to be a Karen, but that's often like those different features, like the hair or the sunglasses, those are often associated with what these people call a Karen.
All right, and did you say you had another one?
Yeah, I had one more, and this is more of like a comic book hero trope that you often see, where, especially in like a superhero story, the stereotype of a man saving a woman and she is thus the reward for the hero. And some good examples are Lois Lane, Mary Jane Watson from Spider-Man. Let's see, what's another good
So what you're
example?
talking about, if I understand you, is a sort of damsel in distress stereotype or trope?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay.
And some different stories will even poke fun at this, like Meg from the Disney movie Hercules. She even says, "I am a damsel, I am in distress, but I can handle this. Have a nice day."
Yeah, sounds to me kind of like a sort of intentional reversal of the cliche or trend.
Oh, absolutely. And then there's some cases of a girl having to save the guy. Like, I believe the animated version of Inspector Gadget, it was often Gadget himself that was being saved by, I believe it was his niece.
Yeah, well, I never really watched the cartoon. I did watch the live action Disney films, so I wouldn't know.
Okay. I will say that in the cartoon, he had to get saved a lot, and it was often by a young girl. So the stereotype of the man saving the woman is not always going to be the case.
So at least it doesn't happen all the time. Sometimes they'll do, if you can call it, the flip flop, which is, I think, refreshing.
Yeah, flip flop, flip side, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, sometimes when they end up doing the reverse, it definitely is a nice difference in telling the story, because if the guy is saving the girl, then we know he probably is going to, and she usually ends up making herself the reward, which honestly at this point, not always good to use, especially with a lot of movements nowadays showing the individual woman being more empowered and more independent.
Okay, so I wrote a few examples, and I I honestly feel like kids entertainment has done at least some of these more often than general market demographic stuff. And so I guess I'll get into the first one already.
Mhm.
I wrote down an example of a stereotype done way too often: stuck up Germans and Brits.
All right, I can think of at least some stories that had stuck up Brits, but I'm struggling on the German part.
Well, honestly, right now, at least right now, the only one that I can think of for stuck up German is if you remember The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. Um,
Hmm.
there was a character on there. recurringly played in maybe a couple episodes or so by Caroline Ray, a sort of German, I mean, blooded hotel manager in some other hotel.
All right.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've seen anything tied to Zack and Cody, but I feel like I might have seen that character before. Maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, and you see the way, the sort of militaristic way she sort of leads her employees and talks to people, and it gives off a sort of like classic, like almost classic Nazi movie vibe, I think.
Well, okay.
Yeah. I'll take them. One other thing I put down was another example: stuck up, serious, know it all, prideful nerds. Yeah, that may be a lot, but I'm basically a sort of intellectual
Yep.
who who acts like they know everything, and they kind of talk down to anyone who doesn't seem as intellectual as them. One example that I think is a good one, probably a classic example, is a kid on at least like the early seasons, or at least the first season of Boy Meets World. I can't think of the name. I can't remember the name, but he did give off that vibe like the one time I saw him.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like in general, this particular stereotype will often be found in stories set around a school. I can't think of any specific examples off the top of my head, but I'm sure there's quite a few.
And I guess one example, well, though this may floor some of you, I didn't really think of it at the time I wrote it, or till like now. But I think one example of maybe maybe him being a stereotype may not bother me as much as his lack of likability, but Jimmy Neutron.
Okay, yeah, I can get that.
He was, well, I think he had a huge fan base. He was a character a lot of people liked because he was a kid with a lot of intellect. But the more I think about it, he was at times he was a kind of a jerk, kind of arrogant, and stubborn, and disrespectful to his mom, at least, and not that likable for those reasons.
Yeah, I didn't have Nickelodeon growing up, but when I went over to a friend's house to watch, we usually turned away from Jimmy Neutron, and I think a lot of that had to do with characters like him and how they were being portrayed. It's like, yeah, it's cool that he was super smart, but like you were saying, he was a bit arrogant. Every once in a while, getting a little too full of himself. It's like we don't want to connect ourselves to a character like that.
Yeah. I also wrote down unforgiving, completely serious women. Now, this is something I think is a problem because it makes women or females seem so unapproachable, and makes them seem like it never takes anything. It takes much, or close to much, to light a fuse with a woman or a girl.
I can definitely get that. And while I do like some of these characters, some examples I thought of were some of the female Disney villains. It's like, yeah, they're villains, so of course they're going to be nasty, but at least they usually have some factors that people like about them. And these, like most of the Disney villains in general, but since we're talking about women specifically, a lot of the female Disney villains are unforgiving and completely serious.
Yeah, like what would you say is one example?
Let's see. One good example of that. The first one that I really thought of was the Queen of Hearts from Alice in Wonderland. Because really, you can't take her too seriously because she's kind of a goofy, over the top villain. But at the same time, any sort of slight inconvenience leads her to not forgive anybody. But the slightest inconvenience will cause her to want whoever did it to instantly be beheaded.
Okay. And chicken then. This is probably going to bite some people especially hard. But my last example I put was females smart and perfect, males dumb and always doing wrong.
I mean, that definitely can happen. See, what would be a good example of that, though? Do you happen to have any?
Not really. I think it was just a general feeling that I had.
All right. I guess in some way we can kind of go back to Disney's Hercules because the girl, Meg, she was smart, she was somewhat sneaky and such. And Hercules, for a while he was like the big, strong man, he still was a bit naive and idiotic at times. So I guess that could be one. And then oftentimes in movies or TV shows, I feel if there is a woman who is wearing glasses, she's often a character depicted to be really smart.
Which probably isn't the worst thing, but
Well, no, it's
but
not necessarily
it can be misleading though.
right.
I forgot I had one other one here. I wrote psycho misogynistic man. This seems to be particularly prevalent in things like movies on the Lifetime channel or maybe a couple other channels that are similar to that. It's gotten to a point, it seems now, I'm not making this up. There was an ad and some delivery guy coming up to some woman's door, rings the bell. She opens it, and there's a little back and forth dialogue. I don't remember what was said. And then she's like, no, nah, I don't trust you. She shuts the door. And then there's a caption that says, someone's been watching Lifetime movies.
Oh, wow. They actually did that?
The network themselves, they did that apparently.
Holy cow.
And that, my reaction was one of like anger or ouch or, oh man, that's like, oh, or so does she not trust any guys or something like that?
Yeah, that definitely seems to be how it's coming across the way you're describing it to me.
Just seems unfair.
It really does.
Yeah. I suppose, I've thought from time to time maybe we deserve it because in the past we males have not been very respectful to females, and so maybe we deserve some of it. But I'm not saying it's right what they do to us, but yeah, either way, it seems unfair.
Well, I mean, that's a perfect example of a stereotype negatively affecting a certain group because, yeah, there are some guys that'll do that more so than anyone would ever like. But at the same time, it also doesn't mean all of them are that bad. Like, all guys are bad. Like, granted, should you still be cautious when you don't know someone? Absolutely. But if you
Yeah.
completely shut all of them out, then it won't give the right guys, like the ones that legitimately want to be friendly, a chance to really prove themselves.
And I feel like another effect of it is is because females tend to be so skeptical. Well, they're not all the same, I don't think, but they do
You
often
know.
tend to be so skeptical and so and so angry at the other gender and expect like such specific standards, I guess you could say. There is often guys like myself might feel a need to at least pretend to be something or somebody that they would like, or to pretend to be something that we're not.
Yeah. Okay.
And then the next question: what are some specific examples of past stereotypes, fictional media or whatever, that are not likable?
Now, this one, I struggled a little bit to really think of a specific example. I
Okay.
mean, at least in terms of characters that have these stereotypes, at least after the ones we've already listed, one that kind of came to mind was the kids in the It films. Because I don't know about all of them, but a good chunk of them somehow would fit into one stereotype or another. And maybe before they were passable, but now, especially with how sensitive everything is, those stereotypes, especially when applied like this, may not be as likable now.
I thought of a couple of examples myself, and the first one I wrote down was the kids in Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids, the animated series that by Bill Cosby.
Right.
And I saw only like one or two episodes, and there seemed to be this ongoing gag, like of these black kids and kids talking in sort of broken, drawling, or slurring, if that's a better word, English,
Sure.
and which seems to be kind of what most people would expect to hear out of a black's mouth. And I guess now, a part of my brain has reflected on that and thought, well, I guess he's black. Cosby's black. He can make fun of himself, I guess. But you know, Chris Rock once, I think it was in an early routine in his career, emphatically, if that's the right word, or complained about the show being so or feeling so racist because of one black was illiterate and one had this sort of speech impediment or something, and so yeah, that one is kind of an issue for me.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that.
Yeah. And then going back to Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, we had the infamous, if you could say that, London Tipton, the hotel heiress, who
Yep.
was who was just a constantly, concerned about, I don't want to get my clothes messed up, or being so full of herself, or for being picky, or being all intolerant of a little dirt, or being glamorous. That's that stereotype, and don't think they're all the same. And we've kind of said that already, I think.
Now, this was the character that was portrayed by Brenda Song.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I take it then, yeah, you had her sort of constant rival, the Ashley Tisdale character, Maddie. I take who was written as a kid from a Catholic background who attended a Catholic school. And there were times when she would get all fired up about something and go on a sort of confrontational tangent, uh, and which would give some very stereotypically religious vibes that were not the best. But one positive thing she was blonde, so that may have shattered the dumb blonde stereotype. At least they got that.
Okay, that's definitely a plus.
Yeah. I had a couple more questions I wrote down, and the next one is there ever a situation in which stereotyping can be acceptable?
And this is where I wanted to bring a discussion back to the show you mentioned earlier. What would you do? Is like we were saying, stereotyping usually not a good thing, but this show took advantage of that and really tested how people would react to these stereotypes actually being applied. So I feel like that
Oh,
is a good way to use stereotypes.
so, can you think of an example of maybe based on your memory of episodes you've seen, or yeah,
Well, one that I saw that I still remember is a situation where these people would be sitting in a diner and a waitress who was in on the experiment, like she would serve them and she would leave the room for a second to get their total amount or however that went. She comes back, but while she's out of the room, the customers in question, who are again also in on it, walk out without paying or tipping or anything. And the experiment is to see how people react to that. Now, this one stands out because what they first did was they tested how people would react to white kids doing this, like in their teens, early 20s. And when white kids did it, most of the people, of course, there were people that would stop them or try to say, hey, you shouldn't do that, or at the very least support the waitress. But there weren't too many who did. But then when they flipped it and had a group of black kids do it, suddenly a lot more people were reacting either to stop them or support the waitress, which really painted a picture of how people will see certain groups of people and how they will treat them, even if they're doing the exact same thing.
I think that proves there is a sort of double standard when it comes to how people hold different people to standards of morality and human decency.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then the other example I had, because I only had two, the other one I
All
had
right.
was comedians. And the reason why I say that is because many people find they laugh the most when a comedian is making fun of themselves. Because oftentimes when they do, they're directly referencing a stereotype associated with them. Like John Panette, he was a really big one. Although I probably shouldn't have phrased it that way because he was a big guy. And he was fully aware of this. And he did end up trying to be healthy towards the end of his life. But he was a big guy and he often would make jokes about either how big he is or just jokes about food in general. And he legitimately enjoyed it, which caused other people to enjoy it. And then another comedian, and this guy I've actually met once before, uh, his name is Josh Blue. And he's a comedian and an athlete no less, who has cerebral palsy, and he will often make jokes about his experience with cerebral palsy. So I feel like comedians doing that could be a rare example of a stereotype being applied in a still relatively positive way.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. I did think of just one answer, and I thought of a certain animated series which I have briefly mentioned on the show before, twice,
Mhm.
if if not just once. The Loud House on Nickelodeon. Mm. If you've seen enough of the show, you'll notice there's a sort of in a way, the boy in the middle is kind of more fleshed out, but the girls, his sisters, are, tend to have a sort of generalized personality profile to them. Like you've got the energetic rocker, the extremely goofy comedian, or the dumb blonde fashionista, and gloomy goth, and a bunch of ones. But one thing they do smart is, I think, they still, give them more than just that basic vibe to them. They do the way they write these characters, that they are supportive of each other. They are are shown at times to be useful for certain situations you might not expect, and they are shown to be smarter sometimes than you expect. I don't know what to say. It's just it's probably still there's probably still some danger because it's very stereotyping and very expected character writing, but at the same time, it's not mm, that extremely generalized.
So basically, all these different female characters, each of them can be applied to a certain stereotype, but they also write these characters so that's not the only thing that defines who they are. Like they're not just these
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
one-dimensional characters.
Right. Yes. Yeah, that's probably a better way to put it.
Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
I personally haven't seen a lot of The Loud House because, again, didn't have Nickelodeon, but I've had other people kind of tell me about the show at least a little bit. So that is definitely encouraging that, again, while they might have these stereotypes, that's the stereotype isn't like a definition of who they are.
Yeah. I have one last question here. Is there a way to write stories and/or characters in a thoroughly entertaining way without using dangerous potential stereotypes?
That was difficult for me to answer this one, though what I ended up saying was as long as the characters have a good reason to fit into a stereotype and the writers make it perfectly clear that it isn't with the intention of being mean spirited, such as with the Loud House, there is a chance that it can be done right. It's not a guarantee, but there's a chance.
I think one reason it works on the Loud House is that they tend to split the spotlight between these characters and kind of rotate between them, and they're usually given like equal exposure and attention in any given episode, or they'll do kind of the flip flop, and they'll often focus an episode on one particular of them, and so you get to see more of how they conduct themselves over the course of a day and over the course of a situation.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And so that's it for that. And what we like to do usually after that whole table talk segment is a little game time, a little quiz, a little sort of fun little challenge.
Hmm.
And so I it took me a while to come up with a game for Jordan, but I finally did today, and it's a basic one. I don't know how easy or hard it's going to be for him, but wouldn't hurt to give it a try. I don't think.
All right, so how are we going to do it?
All right. So basically, Lee, you have to try to name a bunch of different popular television shows. I'm going to tell you the title of an episode. You try and name the show.
All right, I haven't seen too many television shows as of recent, but we'll see how this goes.
Yeah, try not to make this too hard. So, but it still might be somewhat difficult. Going to go ahead and read the first one here. The first one is called The One Where Phoebe Hates PBS. So, what's the show?
Well, let's see. There aren't too many shows with a character named Phoebe that I'm aware of, but the one that I believe does have one is the show Friends.
There you go. That's it.
Oh, it is Friends. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Here's another one. Clown with a Frown.
Clown with a Frown. Now, was this a live action one or is it an animated?
It's live action.
Okay, Clown with a Frown. Just by the episode name, I'm not sure I'd be able to name the show.
I don't know. You got no idea?
Yeah, I really don't.
The Big Comfy Couch.
Holy cow, I haven't seen that in years.
Yeah. I vaguely remembered seeing that show when I was really young, when it was running on PBS. Though it technically originated with a Canadian network, but then they started showing it on PBS, and I caught a little of it there. And I recently revisited it, and it is, I think, even better than I remember from those days.
Okay, I might have to look back at it again. The one thing I remember that show doing pretty much every episode was usually near the end, I believe, there would be a big mess on the floor. And when she went to clean it up, the video would play in fast forward.
Yeah, would do a sort of time lapse, and they called it the 10-second tidy.
Okay, yeah, that's what it was called. I couldn't remember what they dubbed it, but I remembered that happening in most episodes.
Yeah, that was pretty much, I think, the biggest thing that I remembered from seeing it as a kid. And, well, yeah, that was pretty much a running gag for every episode.
I personally loved it.
Yeah, I really like it now as an adult. That may be weird to some of you, but I think it's probably better than most other kids' television ever made.
I mean, hey, everyone has their own interests, what they like and don't like, so all the more power to you.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to move on to the next episode title. The next one is The Story of Womps.
Womps. I feel like I've heard the word womps before. But I'm trying to think of where.
Well, this is an animated show, I'll tell you that.
Well, based on the word womps, I was kind of figuring that. Is this from a more recent show or less recent?
It's somewhat older.
Okay, so an older animated show. Womps. I am a little stuck on this one.
All right, should I just say it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Recess.
Oh my god. Oh man, I
Yeah.
knew I was going to kick myself for that one. I loved watching that show.
Oh yeah, pretty big part of my childhood. Yes.
I remember on Saturday mornings, on ABC, I believe, they would have ABC
Yes.
Kids where they would have shows like Recess or Emperor's New School, Kim Possible.
Even Stevens, Lizzie McGuire. Yeah.
Yep. I remember that. Oh, the nostalgia.
Uh, all right. The next one, Helga on the couch.
Okay, Helga. That definitely sounds familiar. There's a cartoon character. I'm picturing her in my head. Is this the Helga from Hey Arnold?
That's the show. Yes. Hey Arnold.
Okay, good. Got another one. Thank God.
Oh yeah, that's kind of a classic episode. Yeah, definitely. And also a show that was part of my childhood. Yeah.
I forget. Was Hey Arnold Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network?
Nickelodeon.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Got another one here. Diversity Day.
Let's see. That's a more generic sounding title.
This is a live action sitcom.
I don't know if this would be right, but the first show that comes to my mind was Fresh Prince of Bel Air.
Nope.
Okay, so it's not that.
All right. This is a network primetime. This was on NBC,
Okay.
like The Fresh Prince.
So is it at least on the right track?
Yeah.
I'm honestly not sure.
Right. The Office.
Oh, you know, I've had a lot of people tell me to watch that show. I just never have, at least not yet.
I have watched quite a bit of it with my dad. He's really into it. Yeah. So I got another one here. Sailor Mouth. Sailor Mouth.
That one I know is SpongeBob.
Indeed it is.
Yeah. I think I have that episode on a DVD somewhere. And I always love that one. Like, I don't think streaming services have that particular episode anymore. But I personally found that episode really funny, particularly when it came to all the different sound effects they use whenever they supposedly said a bad word.
And they would use the dolphin sound effect. Yeah.
Yep. And there was that whole segment after Mr. Krabs stubs his toe where he says the supposedly 13 bad words all in one go. And all the different sound effects they use. Like they had, of course, the dolphin, they had a car horn or something, the horn of a boat, and many different other ones. It was actually, that always made me laugh because the sounds were just so random.
Yeah, it was I guess it was kind of confusing when I saw it as a kid because you never knew. Of course they couldn't tell you. Of course I know that, but you never really knew what they were saying but hearing that it might not be on streaming makes me sort of wonder why, because nothing what most would consider dirty is really heard.
I think it would have probably been due to the implications behind what they would have been saying if it wasn't censored. But yeah, Paramount Plus, which I believe is a streaming service that hosts SpongeBob, has removed a small handful of episodes. I believe that was one of them. And then the other one I know they got rid of from the lineup was one where SpongeBob and Patrick took Mr. Krabs with them to raid what ended up being his own mother's house.
Oh, yeah, the panty raid. Yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah, that one definitely.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Sailor Mouth, maybe, but that one wasn't as bad.
Yeah, well, yeah, but the one with the panty raid, I can understand. Wouldn't want kids imitating that.
No, most definitely not.
Yeah. All right, I got a couple more. The next one is the puffy shirt.
Is that Arthur?
Now, this is a live action sitcom.
Okay, because I remember, like the show Arthur, he ended up getting this snow jacket or something that was like really
Oh,
big and puffy. So that was the first thing I thought of.
it was a sort of comic book hero, I think.
And the episode was called what?
Um, we're looking for the show that had the episode "The Puffy Shirt."
All right. Puffy shirt. And this was a live action one.
And this is another NBC show, I think.
Okay. I'm honestly not sure.
Seinfeld.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen much of that show either.
But yeah, I watched like more of it, like a while back, like with my brother. Sometimes, a couple occasions or so, we would stay up late and watch it on Fox Rochester. But I haven't
Okay.
really seen that much of it lately.
Yeah, I think Seinfeld has somewhat of a cult following, so maybe at some point I'll check it out to see what the fuss is about.
Yeah, I think it's like running in syndication on TBS or something all the time.
Okay, so maybe I'll take a look at that at some point.
Yeah, I don't know if you have that channel, but I think we do.
We don't. I think we used to at one point, but we don't now. But if it's on CBS, then maybe it'll show up on the CBS website, or maybe it's on a website like Hulu or something. I might
I
look
think it
later.
was on NBC. I think it was NBC.
Okay.
I know. I have seen it on Crackle, the streaming platform. Might be there.
All right.
All right, I got one last one here, and it's called Treehouse of Horror.
Now, the only series I know that has multiple episodes with a title like that is The Simpsons.
That is the one.
Okay, because I remember, I don't know if it was an annual thing that they did, but usually when they did the Treehouse of Horror, it would be an episode that was a lot darker than most of their other stuff.
And I think it was it's been like a yearly Halloween tradition, I think.
Okay. I wasn't sure if they did it every year, but I remember there being quite a few.
All right. What about you? Did you come up with a game?
I did. I found a website that has a list of famous people who have in some way broken stereotypes.
All
And
right, in
what I'll
keeping with the big
do,
theme. Okay.
yeah. So what I will do is I'll describe the person or group of people if there's more than one. And then once I say who it is, or if you guess who it is, then I'll say what kind of stereotype they might have broken. So the first one we have here, it is two people, and they are famous because of one of them having a royal background.
Mm, Prince Harry and Duchess Meghan.
Yeah, there you go. Now, the reason why they're here, which many people may already know, is Prince Harry is the only one of the two that has royal blood. And the stereotype given to him was since he's royal, he should marry someone equal to him or of equal status. And since he didn't do that, there were many people in his family or those who knew him in general that might have not been too pleased, but he broke the stereotype. He left the royal family and he's living his own life.
Yeah, I feel like people have been and especially ridiculously harsh on Megan, and that has really made me angry. And I am glad that they were able to escape whatever ridiculous pressures or expectations or harsh treatment that they've experienced since they've been married, and that seemingly they're able to move on, and it seems to be getting better. I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, I haven't had, or rather, haven't heard too many things going on in terms of the confrontation between them and the royal family and whoever else is involved. So I'm taking that as a positive.
All right, you got another one?
Yeah. Let's see. So this is one person, and she is an actress that is known at this point mostly for portraying a very popular DC villain.
A DC villain. Okay. Yeah. You know, I'm not sure if I've watched as much DC as I have Marvel. I mean, I guess I've seen Man of Steel and Batman versus Superman, if that counts, and I've watched Shazam. Hmm. I can't really think of a female DC villain. Well, oh, I think I might have just now.
Okay.
Um, and I believe the actress is Halle Berry.
No.
Yeah, because I thought Halle Berry, Catwoman. So okay.
Well, Catwoman is
Yeah.
more of a. I mean, technically, she is a villain because she is a thief, but yeah, that's not who I was thinking of.
Okay.
Okay, the
Uh,
character I'm referring to is Harley Quinn.
ah, yeah. Didn't think of that.
Do you know the actress that plays her?
Margot Robbie.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Now, the stereotype she broke was after she had been married to her husband for a few years, there were many people that wondered why hasn't she gotten pregnant yet? Because the general stereotype, if you get married, you have to have kids. But she had revealed she didn't want to have kids. Just because she was married, she didn't feel obligated to fit the stereotype and have kids of her own.
Yeah. Well, no, if I'm married, I think I would either. I would think I should have a family either biologically or by adoption.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
She might do that at some point, but we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, maybe the time's not right.
Right. Well, she can decide what she wants to do. It's her life. All right. So,
Okay.
the next one here for you is another actor. This time it's a guy. And he, see, what can I say about this one? He's played multiple characters that are really popular in some form or another. But one character that he played that's really well known was the main character of 6 different movies and a supporting character in a sequel series of films.
Hmm.
And the main character was a boxer.
Oh, Sylvester Stallone.
Hmm.
Rocky.
Now he defied the stereotype of getting your career immediately after college, because many people will say if you don't start right after college, it may be too late. He apparently was in poverty when, or at least near the edge of it, when he was 30, which is a few years after you get out of college typically. And the only thing he had at that point was the script for the first Rocky film. And his only condition was that he would play the main role of the character himself. And he did, and of course, it became a very popular movie that spawned multiple sequels and a sort of follow-up series of movies, which was Creed. So it's like you don't have to start your career immediately out of college. It may be suggested, but that doesn't mean it has to be that way every time.
Yeah, I don't know if this counts as the same kind of thing or not, but I think a similar thing happened with Kurt Warner. He had played a college football career and then and had trouble getting an NFL contract and ended up playing in a sort of lower caliber level, if you can call it that, a sort of lower league of professional football for a while, and before getting a free agency deal and eventually becoming like the greatest undrafted player of all time.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, let's see if I can at least get a couple more here.
All right.
So this next guy, he is in a band. He is the lead singer. And the name of his band, I won't say right away because it might give it away. The name of the band involves a color and a number.
Color and number. Yeah, I've been working mentally just now through all the colors, and that hasn't really helped me.
Okay, I will actually either giving you either might give it away, but I will say the color used in the band's name is maroon.
Maroon 5, yes. Adam Levine?
Mm-hmm. Now, the stereotype he broke was when he found his wife or love interest, what have you. Pretty sure it's his wife, but the stereotype that he defied was usually in a relationship, the man is taller than the woman, but the picture they have supporting the opposite was him standing next to her, and he's actually shorter. So it's not like the biggest stereotype that's broken, but still. All right.
All right.
I will
You got any
do
more?
one more. Yeah, I
Okay.
got one more for you. So this last one is an actor, and he is known for playing a popular Marvel character. Since you brought up Marvel, figured we go that way. And let's see, how can I describe the hero is without giving it away?
I don't know. Maybe
At least
describe
not too much.
their power or their backstory or something.
Let's see, I can probably tell you that he is also from a royal family of sorts. He has, of course, his parents. He also has one sister and one brother. And he is able to control one of the elements.
Chadwick Boseman?
No, although
No?
he does have a sister, but he doesn't have a brother, as far as I know.
Yeah,
At least the character that he plays.
I thought like Black Panther because of the royal family thing, but obviously not.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So
This will probably give it away, but I will tell you that the weapon he wields is a hammer.
Thor,
Yeah.
Chris Hemsworth.
Mm-hmm. Now, in his case, we established that Adam Levine broke the stereotype of the man being taller, but in Chris Hemsworth's case, he broke the stereotype of the man typically being older. Because usually in a relationship, you'll see the man be taller and older. I don't know what the height difference is between him and his significant other, but I believe there is roughly a 7-year difference, and she is actually the older one.
Well, I've heard my mom say if she's old enough to be your mom, she's too old. But a 7-year gap, I think, should be okay.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, in high school, I had a teacher whose husband was 10 years older. So 7 doesn't seem all that bad.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, and now I guess we'll go to a segment, another recurring segment that is usually what we wrap up with, and we call it News That Bites and News That Rocks. News that bites, basically meaning negative, saddening, angering, or something negative like that in a personal experience or the news on the internet or something. And then news that rocks, meaning interesting, intriguing, exciting, something more positive.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, what I had for News That Bites is, of course, for the last couple years at this point, we've been in the middle of a pandemic with COVID-19. And every once in a while, a new variant comes along that ends up discouraging people or requires them to take more tests or get more shots or what have you. And now they're saying there's a new one that's being described as a more stealthy, as they put it, version of Omicron. So if that is really the case, then there is a chance that there's going to be another booster coming, and I can well imagine that people are starting to get sick and tired of it.
Oh, well, if anyone were to ask me advice about a booster vaccination, I think I would say make sure you can afford to take a couple days off because you're probably going to feel sick a couple days afterwards because that's what happened to me. I wouldn't say I necessarily was technically sick, but I did feel like I was having a flu or something the next day, and it really did not feel very good.
Well, I do know that there were multiple different vaccines for COVID when they were first being developed, and people who took a certain one that had multiple doses, usually after the second one, they started to feel like they had corona. And supposedly the idea was to give the person just a little bit of it so that they could supposedly build up an immune system for it. So they would kind of make them feel sick in order so that they'd be less likely to have the full on experience later on.
All right. And for my thing that bites, I mentioned because, or I put down because I'm a fan of the Buffalo Bills. They're my favorite team out of all my favorites.
Okay.
And as most of you in our audience probably know by now, last weekend they were knocked out in the NFL playoffs by the Kansas City Chiefs in a match, an elimination game that they almost won. They were so close to winning. Mm-hmm. And, well, the thing that really bit about it was that when it went into overtime, the Kansas City Chiefs scored a touchdown on the first possession to win. And so the Bills didn't even get a chance to possess the ball during that overtime period and weren't able to contain the Chiefs' offense enough. And so I think that's maybe a rule they maybe need to tweak more or less.
Yeah, I definitely heard a lot of people saying that, and it kind of repeated itself a little bit today with the Bengals and Chiefs game because they also went into overtime and the Bengals scored on the first possession, resulting in them getting the win. Now, this was a little bit unusual because they used to have it where in overtime, if you had the first possession, if you scored a field goal, the other team would have a chance to respond. But if you scored a touchdown, it was game over. But now, I guess, even if you get a field goal, it's game over because that's what the Bengals did to win the game, which I personally think is a little unfair to the other team because then it's like they could kick the ball from almost halfway down the field just once in overtime and end the game without the other team getting a chance to respond. So, in some ways, people are describing wins like that, especially with this most recent Bengals game and the Bills game last week, where it pretty much just boiled down to who won the coin toss.
All right. So what about your thing that rocks?
What I said for the thing that rocks is, well, to give a little background on this, I have for a little while now been taking this voice acting class because what I want to do with my career is be a film and voice actor. And the guy that has been teaching it, he is absolutely fantastic. He's been very supportive. He likes to work with their strengths and boost any of our weaknesses. And recently, because of how little time I've been getting at work and just the fact that I'm not making a lot of money, I told him I may struggle to pay for classes a little bit. Like I'd still do it, but I'm not in the best financial position either. And without a second thought, we had a discussion for a little bit, and he willingly is working with me to figure out a system that we can use until I get into a more secure financial position.
Well, that sounds cool.
Absolutely. He's a wonderful guy.
Yeah. And my one thing that rocks is there's an article that was written in the Democrat and Chronicle newspaper online, and it also is related to the same game that I mentioned, the Bills and Chiefs from last week. What happened after the game was actually kind of a highlight. It ended in a way on a high note because what happened, according to the article, was after the Chiefs scored to win to move on to the AFC Championship this weekend, and they had their little celebration, and he went over. Patrick Mahomes, the quarterback of the Chiefs, went over to show some love to the Bills quarterback, Josh Allen. And Allen seemed to be a really good sport himself and say, this was a good game, and I really appreciate him coming over to acknowledge me in such a classy way.
And in big sporting events like that, I honestly love when I see a moment of good sportsmanship. Like whether or not the team loses, when they go up and congratulate each other, that's one of my favorite things to witness. And we have a development for the other football game. It looks like
an update. Okay.
Yep, the game actually just ended. What happened was the 49ers were on their way to possibly score a touchdown, possibly a field goal. We don't know. And they were down by 3 with about a minute left, no timeouts. As they got close, the Rams caught the ball in an interception and kneeled to drain out the clock. Rams win.
Which means the Los Angeles Rams and the Cincinnati Bengals are the two teams for Super Bowl 56 coming up in a couple weeks.
Yep. And in the meantime, they'll do the Pro Bowl. And then the following week, we'll see the Super Bowl.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. I'll get to work on importing the video for this in a bit. And thanks again for streaming. And we are on Spotify, Facebook, Google Podcasts, YouTube, and Anchor. All our episodes that are released can be found there. And please keep in touch with us, keep the conversation going, and please share what you have to say.
Yeah, if you have any take on what we said today, or if you have topic suggestions for the future, we'd love to hear those. If you have anything you want to talk about on the show, feel free to let us know. We'll work with you. And I guess since the topic is kind of happening right now, let us know who you're going to root for in the Super Bowl.
Okay, so I'll get this imported in a little bit, and until next time, maybe next weekend, we will see you soon. Thank you for tuning in.
See you later, everyone.